how well prepared you are to, I mean, just to take care of your information on privacy while covering social unrest. So I'm launching the poll right now. So you will see a series of 3 questions. So please answer them so I can have an idea of what you guys are up to. Okay, so please answer the 3 questions. The first one is, how far ahead do you make plans to prepare for a risky coverage? A day ahead, a week ahead, or I do not make plans whatsoever? The second question is, what tool do you use to communicate while covering public disturbance? So we have 5 options there. And then we have a third question that says, do you have a team in the field to support each other while covering social unrest? So all of that is important for me to better know today's audience. Okay, keep the answers coming. Okay, good. All right. I will share the poll results in a minute. Okay. Great. Some of you guys are still like the question is pending for some of you. Right. Okay, I think I can close the poll right now so we can see the results. Okay. So I'm sharing the results right now. Okay. All right, check this out. Some of you only plan a day ahead before a risky coverage, and the other half, some of you guys prepare a week ahead, which is good. And some others do not make any plans whatsoever. Okay, right, that's okay. We will actually see some stuff that will be useful for you in regard to that topic. Okay, question number 2. What tool do you use to communicate while covering public disturbance? Okay, this is somehow split into regular SMS messages, cell phone calls, then WhatsApp, and a few of you use Signal. Okay, I bet this will change. This will change after you see what we are about to review and to discuss. All right, third question. Do you have a team in the field to support each other while covering social unrest? Okay, most of you do not have any team to support you. Okay, so you will find this very useful. I'm sure about that. If you have, I'm going to stop sharing the poll results. Now, if you have any questions about the presentation, you can use the Q&A button on Zoom, and I will do my best to address any questions you might have. All right, so let's start. Now, we will discuss 5 topics for today's call. The first one being the planning phase. This is what you guys are going to be doing before the risky event takes place, so you can prepare, etc. The second topic that we will discuss today, it's setting coordination between the field and the newsroom. So this is basically you in the field and editors at the newsroom. So there has to be a coordination. There has to be communication, back and forth communication. You have to agree to certain standards, etc. Then the third topic that we will discuss is security communications. This is actually, I think, my favorite topic of today's call. Then we have the fourth topic, which is conducting interviews safely. Then at the end, what to do in crossfire situations. All right, so let's start with the first topic, which is planning phase. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them on the Q&A section. Okay. Well, for this planning phase, I would like to discuss mainly three threats that three open fronts that journalists have while covering protest or social media unrest, etc. And this applies even for citizens, for just a regular citizen attending a protest. You may find yourself into one of these three situations we will discuss right now. The first one being a social media restriction during the protest and sometimes before and after. Um, in some regimes, authorities will actually restrict the use of Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, sometimes YouTube and other platforms to stop people from organizing or to stop the spread of real-time information of maybe photographs or real-time video, live feeds that people like to do on Facebook, etc. So when authorities want to stop information from going public to the outside, and so it can be known to the whole world, they start restricting access to the internet or to just certain social media websites. There is actually a resource. The link is down on the bottom. This website will show you which regions have active blackouts in regards to certain services. In this case, we are talking about social media applications or in which countries the internet is being restricted. So take a look at it. It's super interesting. This, as you can see, it's very recent, from just 2 days ago. Social media restricting in Sri Lanka as emergency declared amid protests. So here, authorities are blocking Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp, among other platforms. So this is scenario number one. Second one, a total internet blackout. So you can, I mean, of course, you are not going to be able to access Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, etc. But also every other website you try to use or visit, it's going to be down. This is increasingly being used as a weapon against people and civilians as digital weapons. Authorities sometimes just cut off access to the internet. So this can make difficult for a journalist in the field to cover, I mean, to do his or her job. I mean, if there's no internet, maybe there cannot be communication between the journalist and the newsroom, or if journalist is trying to do a live feed on Facebook or Instagram or any other platform, you can't. So some tools that we will review during today's calls will help you out to counter some, well, I mean, these scenarios. And third scenario I would like to share with you guys, it's the use of IMSI catchers. These are devices that mimic cell phone towers. So they catch all the voice and data traffic from people's phones. So let's say authorities may use devices called Stingrays to see how many people is attending the protest, who is calling who, which websites are being used, and some devices have the ability to catch your text messages. That's why during the icebreaker poll, I asked you guys which tool you use to communicate, and some of you, actually most of you, selected SMS messages and phone calls. Just keep in mind that if you use regular text messages and regular phone calls over the cell phone network, those might be spied onto. So which other alternatives you can use, safer alternatives, so you won't be a victim of surveillance and intrusion. Here on the bottom, there's a link with the whole article. I will drop these 3 links in the chat, so you can take a look at the end of the call. All right, so these are the actions you can take before the event that you will cover. First of all, I think you may want to install offline messaging apps so you can stay in touch with other colleagues in the field during an internet or social media blackout. If the internet goes down, or if access, say, to WhatsApp is restricted, you can still communicate with others even if there's no internet access. This app in particular I like a lot. It's called Briar, and it works over Bluetooth. Newer phones have new generation Bluetooth chips that can work several hundred feet away from each other. So let's say if you have a team of 3 or 5 colleagues on the ground, or if protesters download this app before the protest, you can message each other without internet connection. And if you message any other person that is not physically there, that you cannot reach via Bluetooth, then the message will arrive to the other person once the internet connection is restored. And the good thing is that these messages are encrypted with PGP, so they cannot be intercepted by any authority that controls the internet. So this is a very nice app. I really recommend you guys to check it out. Then the second point here is review settings in your computer and the mobile phone related to emergency wipe, GPS location, biometric, unlock, and adjust accordingly. The reasoning behind this is if your phone is robbed or taken away from you, I believe we have someone raised his or her hand. Let me see. No, okay. No, all right. Again, if you have questions, you can use the Q&A feature on Zoom. All right. Yeah. If the phone is taken away from you by let's say by police, by military, by another protester, etc., you can actually remotely delete the contents of your phone. So if that option is not enabled, you can do it before attending the risky event. You can also choose to turn on or off the GPS location depending on the conditions on your region. If you are sharing your location with another person live on WhatsApp, for example, this might be useful for you to know where your colleague is, or maybe some members on the newsroom. I mean, if you want to be monitored and to be able to tell others where you are for security reasons, you can have that turned on. Or if you prefer not to be able, not to be tracked by anyone, including authorities using this kind of devices I told you about, you might choose to turn the GPS location off. In regards to biometric unlock, if you think that there is some risk of being forced to unlock your phone by abusive authorities, you might want to turn that off. So you won't be forced to put your fingerprint or to unlock your phone with your face. Of course, if you want to have quick access to your photo camera on your phone, you can still do that even if you turn off the biometric unlock feature, because you can just swipe up or to the sides and have access to your camera. So all of that depends on how you evaluate the risk level of the event you were covering and the conditions on the ground. And then another device right here, log off or uninstall apps containing sensitive data. This is because if your phone falls into the wrong hands, you don't want a third party to have access to your contacts or to your emails or to your private photos. So before you go out in the field, you might want to just log off of maybe Facebook if you're not gonna use it for, I mean, to do a live stream or to upload pictures. You can log off, or if you have any other apps, maybe you can log off of your cloud backup app. So if your phone falls into the wrong hands, nobody can have access to your data. And you might also opt to sign up for a VPN service. Now, please know that using a VPN service is might not be legal in certain countries, so make sure to check that out. Some VPN services are free, and as we talked about VPN on the previous call, the VPN service is basically just a way to encrypt your internet traffic, so you can bypass any restriction. For instance, if the local government is starting to restrict WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, etc., you can bypass that restriction using a VPN connection. That way you can still use those services even if they are blocked by the provider. Some providers are forced to block certain services from users, and some other countries have internet companies that are controlled by the state. So whenever they want to block something, I mean, it's super easy for them to do that. So you might want to use a VPN service to circumvent those restrictions. Okay. The other some other tips here. If you do not need to bring your computer, just don't. Just don't carry your computer. Of course, most of the tasks you will perform in the field are not going to be on the computer. Maybe on a voice record, on your phone, on your photo camera. But if you are actually staying at a hotel, don't bring your computer if you don't need to. That just makes things easier. If you do bring your computer for any reason, make sure to enable the full disk encryption on your laptop. This is again to prevent your information from being robbed, exposed, or leaked if you no longer have access to your computer. If it's, I mean, if you lose a computer, or if anyone takes the computer out of your room, if you have full disk encryption, then your information is protected. Oh, sorry, go back. And if you can use a loaner laptop, that's okay. A loaner laptop means just a temporary computer that someone is just borrowing you. So you won't take your main work or personal laptop. So maybe just a cheap laptop that you can use for basic purposes. So you won't need to carry all your data. Just get a loaner laptop. That's it. And if you think that you need super extra security and you do not have access to a loaner laptop, just go ahead and format your computer. This is, of course, a tip that will not work for most of you, but if you really need to be sure that nobody can access your files if your computer is taken away from you, that might be a measure you can take. Just format the computer. Make sure to create a full backup of your phone. I mean, the phones are devices that can be easily lost or damaged during a protest. And you might want to purchase external battery packs for your phone and or camera if you're going to be in the field for quite a long time, for some hours. And if you're constantly using your phone, then the battery might run out. So you might want to have an external battery pack at hand. And another tip here: review cell phone service coverage. If you perform coverage of social unrest in big cities, this would not apply. But if you need to travel elsewhere, to small villages or something, you might want to check if you will have internet and voice service. So if you go to this website, you can enter the country and the region, and it will tell you which cell phone companies have coverage in which specific areas. Once a journalist told me that she was traveling to a remote area to interview some people, and then she found out that she had no access to the internet, so she was unable to reach her destination because um, she didn't download offline maps on her phone. So even though the GPS service was working, because that doesn't depend on data, uh, the map wasn't loading, so she was unable to make a phone call. She couldn't reach her destination, and she was actually rendered. I mean, she couldn't perform her job. So if that's the case, if you will travel to a remote location, make sure you have internet service. If not, you can just maybe do some other kind of arrangements or download offline maps if you need navigation, etc. And some other tips: you can carry a burner phone if possible. This is another phone you can just throw away after attending the protest. This is relevant if you suspect that authorities might use devices like the one I told you about, like the IMSI catcher. If you feel that your phone could be tracked after attended protest, you can use a burner phone and just throw it away. Maybe you can keep your main phone off or in airplane mode and just use the burner phone while in the protest. And after attending the protest, just throw away the phone if you think that will increase your privacy or security. You can also set up speed dial or one touch call for important contacts. This might seem very obvious. Maybe you think that you already know the phone numbers of important contacts, but believe me, when you are under stress, you might just forget about important stuff like phone numbers. So if you set up speed dial or one touch call for your important contacts, if you are under stress, you can just hit a button and make the phone call if you need to ask for help or anything. So make sure to set up that before attending the event. Another suggestion that might seem obvious, but you still need to take it into account, is use Google Maps for area reconnaissance. Just locate which spots you consider safe. You can locate escape routes. You can locate maybe public subway transportation, or I don't know. I mean, this all depends on your area and etc. But you might use Google Maps before you go into a certain area, so you know where you are basically. Again, even though you might want to use speed dial numbers, you should still at least try to memorize the basic important numbers in case of an emergency. Of course, I mean, this is not cybersecurity, but you still need to be sure you are physically and psychologically ready to cover the event. If you think you are not ready, you might just go ahead and skip covering the event. I mean, it's always better to take care of yourself. And if you are staying at a hotel, if you're traveling to another area, just don't blindly trust the safes at hotels. Some of them have master default codes. So if you put there your, I mean, maybe, I don't know, your wallet or your computer or your camera, someone might still be able to open the safe at the hotel and take your stuff out. So keep that in mind. We will now go over the topic number 2, setting coordination between the field and the newsroom. These 5 points here should be discussed so you can have a better standing in regards to safety. So first of all, make sure to set what expectation is in terms of news coverage. So just be clear about what the newsroom is expecting from you and what you expect from yourself. Just don't go beyond, stick to the plan. Make sure to have legal, medical, and newsroom contacts at hand if you need them. This is basic. And make sure you are provided by your employer with everything you need meaning protective ear, sorry, IDs. My mouse is playing some games on communication equipment, etc. And make sure you have a plan to stay in touch and stick to the plan. Define a backup plan in case the main plan cannot be carried for some reason. And as I told you before, stick to your plans and trust your instincts. If you feel you need to leave for some reason, just go ahead and leave. Of course, your security comes first. Then third topic about securing communications. Use mobile data as much as you can. The reasoning behind this is authorities might deploy Wi-Fi access points to try to catch all the internet traffic. This is actually very easy and it's not technically hard to implement. If you find an open Wi-Fi access point during the protest, I mean, I wouldn't trust it honestly, because people controlling the access point can see which websites you visit and can see if you are using WhatsApp, etc. So use mobile data as much as you can if there is coverage. And if you use VPN on top, you are encrypting your communications. If you do need to use a Wi-Fi connection, just use VPN always. And if you're really need to share super sensitive information, connect to the Tor network with the app and just send your, I don't know, if you want to send some emails, you can open the web version of the email client on the Tor browser, or just use the Onion site for that specific email provider and send your emails over the Tor network. This way, you actually guarantee that your information isn't gonna be messed with and spied on. Okay. And this other tip right here, I consider it very important because some of you guys answered that you were using regular phone calls to stay in touch. Keep in mind that those phone calls can be easily tapped into with specific equipment that authorities may have. So you should actually use data calls over WhatsApp and or Signal. To do that, just avoid cell phone lines and the public phones and landlines. Try to use encrypted apps for any voice calls, not only for text messages, but also to do your voice calling. And the fourth topic here will be conducting interviews safely. This is to protect you and the person you are interviewing. So you can use voice recorders with encryption. Again, we want to protect the information from being exposed or leaked if we lose the device. Okay, so if you use some voice recorders with built-in encryption, you need to enter a password to be able to extract the audio out of the device. And even to open the audio and play it on the voice recorder, you should enter a password. And this is with AES 256-bit encryption, which is a super strong encryption. So you can use that. I mean, if you have the means and the resources, go ahead and purchase one of these devices. Here are two models I recommend to you guys, Olympus and Philips. Those are voice recorders that can be trusted for sensitive information. Or you can also use WhatsApp voice messages. You don't have to be holding your finger on the mic button. You can just lock it. So you can use WhatsApp to conduct interviews. Remember that the contents on your WhatsApp conversation are encrypted, and only you and the other person are able to read or hear the messages. So you can actually use that encrypted feature to do voice interviews. because as you know, you cannot record calls on WhatsApp. And if you try to record your screen on Android or iOS, the recording won't actually save your phone conversations. So you might want to use WhatsApp and just log the mic, and you can just interview the other person, and then that message will be encrypted. Again, use WhatsApp or Signal to exchange text messages. Do not use the SMS feature on your phone plan, because those messages can be read by third parties with the right equipment. And also, if you want to go one step beyond that, just make sure to use PGP encryption to keep your emails and files confidential. This is, of course, something that you will not do. I mean, you are not going to be sending emails while covering the event in the field. But after, I mean, let's say you reach your destination, or if you go back to your hotel room or to the place where you are staying, if you need to send some emails, just make sure to use encryption. Usually, authorities step up their spying game when there are protests. So you have to keep a higher level of security in those kind of situations. And of course, this is, I mean, this does not concern the cybersecurity, but I mean, it's still somehow related. In Crossfire situation, of course, you need to lay flat on the ground, so you don't overexpose your body to bullets. You need to cover your head. Take cover behind a thick wall or vehicle. Just remember, the strongest part of the vehicle is the engine. So if there's a crossfire situation and you see a vehicle near you, you can just hide just behind the front wheels where the engine is. That's the strongest part of the car. If you hide, if you cover yourself behind the doors of a car or a trunk, that's not really, I mean, bullets might just stop on the car body, but most of them will actually just go through it. So use the front of the vehicle and just leave the area as soon as you can. We'll try not to overexpose yourself. Of course, you will try to identify where the fire is coming from. If it's safe to leave the area, just do it. If not, just keep hiding. And well, that's basically it for today's call. I would like to have a small conversation with you guys. If you have any questions, just make sure to drop them on the Q&A section on Zoom. If there are not any questions, maybe I can, Luis Botello can take over.
Thank you, Jorge Sebastian. Actually, while we encourage any of the participants, if you have any questions, please, you can go ahead. You can send the questions in the Q&A section right here at the bottom. But in the meantime, Jorge Luis, I was going to ask you, how important is the gear that journalists or human rights people going into conflict zones, the type of gear that they should be using? I see now, for example, in the, in some protests, in conflict zone like war zones, people use all kind of, gears, bulletproof and so. But what about protests? Like it's, where you might have tear gases, you might have what kind of gears you recommend?
It depends, Luis Manuel. It depends if you are in a crossfire situation. Let's say there is a confrontation between the police and some demonstrators, and some bullets are fired. Maybe it can be enough to have a bulletproof chest of level 3. But if you go to Ukraine or you go to other countries that is the use of heavy weapons, all these military weaponry, maybe you need another type of protection, like some level 4, which is mostly the most strongest it is the strongest way of protection against the type of bullet that the military uses.
Yeah.
But they are so hard to get, at least in some areas that are just restricted to the military people. So, but if you are covering social unrest, maybe level 3 bulletproof chest is enough.
Yeah.
So in terms of gas, it's so important that you are going to cover a demonstration is that you trying to plan ahead exactly to find the best points where you can be located if some violence emerges. So you can be located not exactly in the middle between the police and the demonstrators, but maybe 15 meters or 20 meters ahead away from the place where they are just launching the gas grenades. Of course, if you are using some type of protection, some gas masks, it's going to be important you have one, at least one.
Yeah.
Also, it is very important that you are prepared to stop a bleeding. Is you or your colleague suffer an injury and then you start to bleed, or your colleague starts to bleed. It's so useful to learn how to stop, how you can stop the bleeding, particularly if this is life-threatening.
Yeah, Jorge Luis, we have, I think, 2 questions here. I think Jorge Sebastian or yourself can go ahead. Jorge Sebastian, I think there is a first question: how secure is using Skype, Microsoft Teams, and Zoom? Thanks. I mean, what are those? What will be? How secure they are?
Okay. Well, as far as I know, the calls on Zoom are not end-to-end encrypted. They said they used end-to-end encryption, but I believe when technologists in the security community tried to find out more about what type of encryption Zoom was using, they were not able to fully explain the technology behind it. But the good news is that Zoom hired some very competent people for their security department. But as of now, I'm not sure if that has translated to a level of security, to a standard that would be acceptable to do super sensitive calls. I mean, of course, we are carrying this conversation today on Zoom. So, I mean, the level of confidence that I have on Zoom is enough to do this kind of calls. But there are other alternatives that use real end-to-end encryption. I believe that you can now make group calls on WhatsApp. So you can do that. And I mean, the same answer I would give in regards to using Microsoft tools.
Yeah.
Those guys are not sharing their code, so there's no way that independent parties can make an audit on how they are implementing security features. And I mean, even though those companies are trustful, we always welcome transparency. And of course, those 2 companies being privately owned, and I mean, they are businesses after all. So I mean, they are not gonna disclose how their tools operate. Yeah. And there's another question that I find, very interesting about. It says, since Meta is the owner of WhatsApp, how confident are you about using it for digital security instead of Signal? Well, that's a very interesting question. Keep in mind that both WhatsApp and Signal share the same security protocol. Actually, WhatsApp uses the Signal protocol to encrypt messages. So if you use WhatsApp or Signal, you have the exact same level of end-to-end encryption. Like the backend works exactly the same. Now, of course, the WhatsApp code for the app, it's not public, but it's known that WhatsApp uses the Signal protocol to make the messages reach the other party. The code for WhatsApp is public, but I believe only the code that relates to the Signal client, like the code that makes the software work on the user's cell phone. I believe that the code for the server has not been disclosed, but at the end of the day, Signal is being developed by trust community members of the security circle. So both tools are technically the same in terms of security, and in regards to data collection, of course, WhatsApp, being owned by Facebook, collects certain information about your phone, like the mobile operator, the name of your WhatsApp, the name of your Wi-Fi network, the name of your contacts, profile pictures, the name of the groups that you belong to, etc. And that type of data collection does not happen on Signal. Of course, Signal needs to have the ability to know which groups you belong to, etc. But once the information is used to connect your messages, that information is discarded. Now, the other difference that I found interesting is that your WhatsApp messages are now encrypted when you make a backup. So before, that was not the case. Now, in most markets, I'm not sure if this has been rolled out worldwide, but at least in most markets, I believe that WhatsApp has end-to-end encryption for the backups, and Signal does not have a cloud backup for your account. Like the backup that Signal uses is living on your phone. So if you lose your phone, you have no backup whatsoever, and if you transfer your messages from one phone to the other, you have to transfer the file and make sure you know the password to decrypt your backup. Otherwise, you won't be able to get your messages. I hope that answered your question. If not, I can tell you more about it on email.
Yeah, Jorge Sebastian, I don't know if there is anyone else have any other question. Please go ahead. You can send your questions in the question and answers section here. Jorge Sebastian, there is also in some parts of the world, some people use Telegram as well. There have been some mixed reviews about Telegram. Briefly, what do you think about that option?
Okay. I mean, I do like Telegram, but not for sensitive topics. The reason is the following: both WhatsApp and Signal use end-to-end encryption as a default. But in Telegram, you have to open a secret conversation so you can have an encryption. And again, the code behind Telegram is not public, so nobody knows how it works. Nobody is able to verify that there is actually a strong implementation of end-to-end encryption. There's not so many information about it compared to Signal, for instance. And yeah, and besides that, I think of course you can use tools for malicious purposes, such as selling drugs, etc. But I know people that have been arrested doing illegal activity using Telegram, thinking that they were ongoing on secure conversations. So I don't believe that's a trustworthy alternative when it comes to privacy and security.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone? There is I think a comment. Wire. Harry Suhardi. There is what's the question? Where no we use Wire. Hey Harry, can you elaborate?
Like the Wire app?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I think I will have to research a little bit about Wire to be able to better answer that question. So I think I will review Wire and contact this participant through the ICFJ email to answer that specific question. I think I will have to do more research before giving my opinion on Wire.
Yeah. Also, I want to remind everybody that we'll be able to answer more questions too if you send us your questions. My colleague Alexandra just put the message on the chat. This is the email that where we are addressing all further questions, asiasecurityprogram@icga.org. You can send other questions if you are unable to, if we're unable to answer now. Jorge Luis or Jorge Sebastian are going to be able to address some of those questions. Any other questions from the audience? We have a few more minutes. If not, I think, Jorge Sebastian, do you have anything else you would like to add related to this?
I am sure. Yep, I am gathering the links I showed you guys on the call. So give me just a minute. I will drop them on the chat.
Yeah. In the meantime, I want to take advantage of this time that we have to remind you about the upcoming webinars in this year. April 12th is the next one. Is Digital Security Basics Tools. Please make sure that that's on your calendar. April 12th. And on April 19th, we have the Digital Security Basic Practices. And April 26th, we have the Protecting Communications. Then we have on May 3rd, we have From Risk Assessment to Security Protocols. And the last one is on May 10th, which is Advanced Digital Security. Make sure you follow this and make sure you remember, put it in your calendar. I'm also, I don't want to remind you about the online self-instructed course that we have. It's ongoing, it's open, and you can go to our website. My colleague Alexander has put the link to the digital security course that we have. This is if you want to expand even more and have access to more resources that what you'll be getting during this series. Well, Sebastian, I see you added more information. Can you explain?
Yeah, I added four links. The first one is the NetBlocks website, which will give you guys the ability to track any internet or app blackout. The second one is just a story about the internet being blocked amid a recent protest in Kazakhstan. And the other article is Privacy International article regarding the IMSI captures that has more information about these kind of devices. I get this question a lot. What are the capabilities of an IMSI capture, etc.? You can read that article. It contains some useful info on it. And yeah, that's it. Oh, and at the end, I also shared a link where you can check the cell phone coverage of a specific region. So you can make sure you will be able to use your phone in remote areas. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions? We have two more minutes. We don't have any more questions. I have a question, maybe Jorge Luis. We were talking about these digital security alternatives for communication and messaging. Is that what we use also for like dealing with sources, especially in countries that are having some sort of political unrest, or will you try to avoid those digital messaging systems even with sources?
Okay, it's an important question because in some countries, sources are getting more technical and using encryption. So if you want to interact with a source and the source is using encryption, you need to use or need to learn how to encrypt information as well. But in some other countries, sources are not exactly technical. So you need to consider a non-technical option to communicate with that person. So if it is possible, the in-person communication will be part of the protocol. So you need to combine in-person and online, offline activities when you can use encryption. When you are not able to use encryption because the source is not familiar with encryption, try to get another option. But don't stop protecting the information. Maybe if you want to contact a source, maybe you can learn how to encrypt information by hand, which is another way to encrypt information by using the old system of encryption. And you use only a pencil and a piece of paper, and then you encrypt the information by using the piece of paper and a pencil. So without using any sort of electronic encryption. So this combination can be so useful depending on the environment.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jorge Luis. Yeah, that was very interesting because, as you know, sometimes we become vulnerable, not because we haven't taken the necessary security and safety protocols, but sometimes the sources and the people we deal with, especially during the coverage, when there is a lot of confusion, protests, unrest, or a conflict zone, that could be an area where our communication could be compromised when actually doing our news gathering process. So thank you so much.